Hello, I'm asking for advice. A close friend of mine had a stroke in the hospital and was tied up because of a fight. Now, however, he is traumatized by the fact that he was tied up. How can I help him process the feeling that he was tied up? He is very clearly aware of it and was aware of it while he was tied up. Thanks in advance.
First of all, thank you for reaching out to help your friend. This is a deeply distressing situation, both for him and for you. What you're describing is a profound trauma, and the fact that you want to help is so important. And the good news is, you're not alone in this, and there's a clear path forward to help him process this. You can play a huge role in that.
So let's dive in. We're going to walk through 6 key steps here. We'll start by really understanding the trauma itself, then get into some very practical things you can do to help, and finally we'll talk about what the ultimate goal of all this healing really is.
Okay, first things first. It's absolutely crucial that we recognize what your friend has gone through. This isn't just an unpleasant memory that'll fade away. For our minds, for our bodies, being restrained, especially when you're already vulnerable after a stroke, is a major psychological trauma.
You see, what makes something traumatic isn't just what happens, it's how we experience it inside. Even if it's medically necessary, being physically restrained can feel incredibly humiliating. It's a total loss of control over your own body, which the brain can interpret as a kind of violence. So your friend's reaction? It isn't an overreaction. It's a completely normal human response to a terrifying and abnormal situation.
So knowing all that, where do we even begin? Well, the very first and honestly the most powerful tool you have in your toolkit is validation. Real healing just can't begin until a person feels seen, heard, and truly understood in their pain.
And the words we choose here make all the difference. Think about it. On one side, you have these phrases that we often say with good intentions, like, "It was for your own good," but what they really do is shut the conversation down. On the other side, though, are words that open a door. Saying something like, "That must have been so scary," doesn't try to fix anything. It just says, "I'm here and I believe you." When someone feels that sense of being understood, you can almost feel the tension start to release.
At the heart of this kind of trauma is that complete and utter loss of control. So it just makes sense that the core of the healing process is about finding ways to restore that sense of control, starting with the memory itself.
And this is where you can gently guide your friend, but only if they're willing. You can encourage them to talk about it. What did they see? What did they feel? What thoughts were racing through their mind? And this is a big one. Help them put names to the emotions. Was it fear? Was it anger? Was it a deep, burning sense of shame or humiliation? Giving words to that chaos is the first step in organizing it.
You know, there's a reason this works. It's not just about venting. The actual process of putting a story into words, of creating a narrative, fires up the more logical, rational parts of our brain. It helps take the memory out of that raw, emotional, reactive center and allows it to be processed and filed away as something that happened in the past, not something that's still happening right now.
Now, let's talk about a more delicate step. Once your friend feels truly validated, and I mean only then, it might be helpful to gently offer some context for why this might have happened. The key here is to do it without ever making their pain feel smaller.
You see, after a stroke, the brain is injured, and that injury can cause a lot of temporary but really serious issues. Things like intense confusion, delirium, or impulsive behavior that could lead to a patient hurting themselves, like falling or pulling out essential IV lines. So sometimes medical staff have to use restraints as a last resort safety measure.
And this is the reframe that can be so powerful. You can help your friend understand that this was not a reflection on who they are. It wasn't a punishment for being difficult. It was a clinical response to a medical emergency. Separating their identity from the event can be a huge step toward letting go of the shame that's tied to it.
It's also so important to recognize that there are limits to what a friend can do, and that's okay. Sometimes the trauma is just too deep, and while your support is absolutely essential, it might not be enough. Knowing when to encourage professional help is a true act of care.
So if your friend is dealing with constant, intrusive memories that just pop into their head, if they're having nightmares, or if they feel a wave of panic just thinking about a hospital, those might be signs of something more serious, like post-traumatic stress. A therapist who specializes in trauma can offer specific tools to help heal those deeper wounds. And for those moments of intense anxiety, you can offer some simple grounding techniques. These are just little tricks to pull the brain out of the past and back into the safety of the present. You could ask them, "Hey, can you name 5 things you see in the room right now?" Or guide them to just notice the feeling of their feet on the floor, solid and stable. Even a simple slow breath, in for 4, out for 6, can calm the nervous system almost instantly.
This brings us to our final and really our most important point. If we strip everything else away, all the techniques, all the explanations, what is this journey really about? It's about finding the path back to dignity.
This right here, this is the heart of it. The physical restraints were temporary. But the emotional wound, that's the feeling of being made helpless, of having your dignity just stripped away. That's where the suffering really comes from. And so your most important role in all of this isn't to be a therapist. It isn't to have all the right answers. It's to be a consistent, unwavering source of respect. It's to listen without judging. And it's to have patience as they find their own way through this. Every single time you really listen, every time you validate their feelings, you're helping to hand back a piece of that dignity that was taken. Ultimately, this whole situation leaves us with a question we should all think about. When someone we care about has been made to feel small and powerless, how can we, through our simple human actions of respect and empathy, help them get their dignity back?